Hi guys, how are you? My name is Zura, and today we're going to talk about hidden parts of JSON.stringify method. First of all, I'm going to start with basic example for those who don't know exactly what is JSON.stringify method. Then I'm going to focus on what is second and third arguments of JSON.stringify. I'm going to show you examples about this, and we will finally understand the full functionality of JSON.stringify at the end of this video. First of all, look at this simple code. We are printing the result of JSON.stringify for different types of inputs. And let's see the output. First of all, what I need to tell you before I start explaining the output is that JSON.stringify always returns string. No matter what value you pass it, it returns string. Actually, it matters if you pass undefined to JSON.stringify or function, it returns undefined. But if you pass null true, all of them are string. Let's type of operator in front all of them, and we can see that all of them are string. If we pass undefined or an empty object, empty function, then we have undefined. Surprisingly, these undefined and empty functions work differently when they are part of an array. For example, if I have an array and I have some values in it, and I am printing this, JSON.stringify returns a string, and this is actually my string, null and 1. So this is a string, but there's an array inside this JSON string. The first argument of this array is null, and second item of this array is 1. The same happens when we talk about function inside an array. The type of a string, of course. Let me delete the rest of the code. And the same thing happens here. When you have function as a object property, like for example, I'm passing an object to my JSON.stringify which has a equals to 15, b equals to foo, and my c is a function. Well, no matter if it's a normal function or arrow function, it works in a similar way. And my C is skipped completely. Behind JSON.stringify, engine calls toJSON method on the given argument. If I have a toJSON method available on my object which I want to stringify, I can return something from my JSON.stringify, like an empty string at this point, and my console log statement will print basically empty string, because my toJSON method is called first if it's available, and this is actually the logic how the engine stringifies the given argument. Better if my toJSON method returns an object like this. For example, A is this A, and B is, for example, this A plus this B. Of course, the function C is skipped automatically, so now I have my A and my B, which is A plus B concatenated. The toJSON method is really convenient when we have circular references to an object. Let's look at the following example. We have an object A and object B. A has foo and C properties, and B has A reference to A object and D property also. And then we are adding B property to A object, which is a reference to B. So we have a circular reference problem. B refers to A, and then A refers to B, and this B refers to A, and so on. Okay, the output when we try to stringify either A or B object will give us an error, because it just can't stringify. It's a recursion without base case, basically, and it can't finally solve the problem. So it doesn't matter if I try to stringify A or B, I still have this problem. In this particular case, toJSON method is really convenient, and this solves actually our problem. Let's see this real-world example where I have customer object and order items array, and my each order item has a reference to my customer, and then I am adding a reference to my order items in my customer object. So my customer, of course, has information what order items he ordered, and my each order item has information which customer it belongs to. Now I want to send this data, for example, to some web service or some backend system. It doesn't matter. I want to stringify this data and make it as JSON string. So I have an error here because converting circular structure to JSON. And the problem is obvious. toJSON method here really solves the problem. We can add this toJSON method to our customer object toJSON. Let me write an ES6 function syntax. My toJSON returns an object. Return object, and I want to, of course, return my name, which is this name. And I want to return also my order items. But the thing is that I don't want a customer object to be inside my order items, because this gives me a circular reference. So order items. Okay, this order items should be a new array of my order items. So this means that I need to map my existing array into a new array. So order items map item, and each object inside this order items array will have only name, which is item name, and price will be item price. I'm not returning a customer object anymore. So these order items, let me just take this code just for demonstration, and instead of printing JSON.stringify, I will print this new array. Okay, here's my new array. I'm mapping existing order items array into new array where I have only price and name. Okay, let me change this to item 2. Okay, now we see that our map function, our map code works fine. We can try JSON.stringify. And here is my result. I have name Zura, order items is a new array where I don't have customer object anymore. You probably have a question, what should we do when we have a lot of attributes here and one of them is customer? What should we do here? Instead of returning this hard-coded object where we only return name and price, we can create a new object let new item, which is an object. Then we can iterate over my item object, and if key is not equal to customer, then I'm going to push it to my new item. And finally, I'm going to return my new item. This is a more universal code. It doesn't matter. We have an error, probably. I is not defined. Of course, we have key, not I. Maximum call stack size exceeded. If key is not equal. Sorry. Okay, the same output, but this code is much better in terms that if I add a new property here, like description, which is a string also, or it can be even added to one order item, not the second one. And I'm printing this, I have this description also in the first object, not in the second. But in my previous code, I was only returning name and price, so this description would not be included, of course. Last and not the least thing I want to talk about JSON.stringify is the second and third arguments of this method. Let me clean up my code, and let's see. Let me leave my order items for using it, and that's it. Okay, I want to show you what is the second and what is the third arguments in JSON.stringify. The second argument of JSON.stringify should either be an array or a function. If it's an array, it must be array of strings, and each element in this array specifies a property name which should be included in the final serialized JSON string. If the property doesn't exist, of course it will be skipped. So the second argument is some kind of alternative of toJSON method, which gives us control which properties we want to include in my final serialized JSON string and which one not. If my replacer is a function, then it will be called for once for the object itself, and then it will be called on each object entry. And it accepts two arguments, key and value. And if you want to skip your key during serialization, you can return undefined. If you want to include the key, you need to return the value, what value you want to have it. So let me take a single object and pass it as a first argument here, and the second argument will be name. Second argument will be an array which has only name and price in it. So I'm telling to my JSON.stringify method that I want to serialize this object and only include name and price there. Here is my JSON. What happens if I try this second argument to pass second argument as an array, but use it on an array also, not on an object? It works the similar way. It takes the second argument, name and price, and applies it for each entry on this order items array. So my description is missing on the first object. To return to our previous example, which was about customer and order items, and I'm gonna delete my toJSON and trying to output my serialized customer object, which will give me a circular structure error. So instead of doing a toJSON method, I can do like this. I want to only serialize name, description, price, and that's it, and order items. And these order items are the order items of customer, these order items. So if I skip my order items, I will only see customer name in my final JSON, because these order items are not considered to be included in my final JSON string. So maybe this is a little bit confusing, because we are mixing property names for two different objects, like for customer and for order items, but this is how it is. And you can use it if you get used to it. It actually saves a lot of time and code, because we had such a long toJSON method written here, and if it's not customer, do this and so on. Well, this is not that universal code. I agree, as we had before, we had hard-coded name and price, and we have similar situation here. We are only returning name, description, and price. And what happens when we have another property here like tax, which is something, which is a number? So this tax will of course not be included in my final serialized JSON object. In this case, probably we should use array, function. The second argument, as I mentioned, can be function, which returns, which accepts, first of all, two arguments, key and value. And we can write similar code here, what we had in my toJSON. Let me paste it here in my toJSON, but we can do it slightly differently. We don't need to map my order items into a new array. Instead, this function will be called on every object entry in my toJSON. So this will be first called to my customer. Okay, let's print and see what is key and value for different objects, and I'm not returning anything. So it's called it's called twice. We have this, first of all, we have this customer object, and then it prints undefined. That's how it is. So this is first called on customer object, and as far as we are not returning anything, our JSON.stringify method returns undefined. If I return like for example Zura, which is a customer name, my final JSON.stringify will return Zura as a string. So here I need to return my customer object. So key, so I'm going to write a logic. If key is not equal to customer, then I'm going to return value. So we reduced our toJSON longer method into this. So we don't want to include a customer key in my final JSON.stringify, and this is how it is. We are printing here a lot of information. Let's keep it for now and see what's the final result. And here is my final result. I have name, order items. I have all information from my order item, tax also, which is good, which is what I wanted. So if I add another attribute here, it will be also included in my final result, final serialized JSON string. Okay, and the final thing is the third argument. Third argument is used for spacing. So probably you have seen these when you want to see this JSON as a pretty JSON. You type here for, which means that you want to apply 4-space indentation on this JSON, and the JSON looks like this. The second argument can either be a number or it can be a string. If it's a number, then this is how it works. If I have here 2, my JSON is like this. What happens if I have a string? Then the engine takes this string and applies it in front of each line. So it's indented with the string with the same amount of spacing as this string has size 4. So if I have 2 spacing here, it's indented with 2 spaces for each line. This is the end of the video. I hope now almost everything is clear how JSON.stringify method works, what is the second argument for, what is third argument, how you can avoid your circular reference problems. I really appreciate if you leave comments below and subscribe for future videos. And if you like the video, click on the like button. Thanks for watching. See you in the next time.